Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Indexer Office Hours. Today is the 30th of July, and this is Indexer Office Hours 168. This is a call where we discuss all of the most important topics that are relevant for indexers. If you are new to the call, that is what we do over here. This is a conversation and we love participation. So if you would like to get involved in today's conversation, please do via voice or text. As a reminder, this is something that's going to be recorded and posted onto public channels like YouTube. So if you are concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, let's get into today's agenda. So, as always, we give a shout out to the latest GRT IQ episode. And today is a really cool one because I am dropping bars indeed. Conversation and participation. I like to rhyme there. Today's GRT IQ episode is a really cool one. It's from a friend of mine, 𝗨𝗀𝗟𝗶𝗀𝗀, who is the co-founder and security researcher at Consensus Diligence. Which is a smart contract auditing firm, if you didn't already know, as part of Consensus, the huge company that basically kind of built Ethereum. He is also the co-founder of Creed, which is a collective of security professionals who are trying to make Web3 a more safe place, and also a technical partner at Ethereum Ventures, which is a VC firm investing in crypto platforms and protocols. 𝗨𝗀𝗟𝗂 is an incredible individual. He is probably one of the most upbeat, kind, clever, optimistic individuals I've ever come across. And it really shines through in this podcast. If you are interested in hearing a bit about his entrepreneurial drive, his upbringing in Portugal, and how he came to get into the Web3 space, and how Portugal itself has become, or specifically Lisbon has become a Web3 hub, and how that's kind of happened over the years. Him talking a bit about security, and of course, him giving us a nice promotion for the graph. He mentioned that almost all of the projects that he works with use the graph, which is a great sign that we have a lot of penetration in the Web3 space. So please do check out the episode. Juan has posted it in the chat as well as the agenda. And with that, I will hand over to Anna for our regularly scheduled Repo Watch section.
Thank you very much, Abel, and hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome. Okay, so today on Repo Watch, starting with execution layer clients, we have had new releases of Eragon. This is Eragon v2, so version 2.60.5, which includes improvements for enhanced diagnostics, support for hex-encoded nonce, enforced gas configuration for Polygon chains, increased RPC throughput, and some bug fixes address TX pool growth and log count parameter management. And it looks like there hasn't been any new updates for Eragon v3. I'm not sure if Payne has any updates on that because you're testing it. If you do, please drop them in the chat. It'll be cool to, for everyone to know. Then moving on, Firehouse Ethereum, new release 267. This bumps the substream's release and fixes high CPU usage on tier 1 caused by a bad error handling. Then we have a new Avalanche release, which is so version 1.11.10, which is compatible with version 1.11.0 and requires all plugins to update for compatibility. Some of the key changes include renaming metrics, fixing block building timer recalculations, refactoring metrics registration, and adding reward calculator usage examples. There's additional updates that restructure the fee calculator API and enable more flexible CI monitoring. And this is all for execution layer clients. Then moving on to consensus clients, we have had a new release on Nimbus, so version 24.7.0, which is a low urgency release that contains beacon API improvements and bug fixes. Some of the updates include support for the published blinded block v2 API endpoint, improved block proposal rewards without pre-aggregating sync contributions, and additional fixes and parameter handling for the Beacon API. More importantly, this release restores Sepolia boot nodes and ensures key manager API fee recipient changes that propagate to builder API release. And all users are advised to update within the normal 2-week cycle. And then on the graph stack, no new releases. So very short and sweet. Just gonna quickly check the chat. So V3 is borked for 𝗟𝗀𝗃𝗀, but there's a fix in main. Awesome. Let us know once you test. Thank you very much for the update. Okay, over to you, Juan.
Thanks, Anna. Okay, so starting with Protocol Watch, first of all, we have, as always, forum governance. Whoops, I was having some issues with push to talk. There we go. Forum governance, which we have JP67, deprecate the L1 mainnet protocol. There is an ETA, which would be the 6th of August, currently for the deprecation of the L1, but I think this is going to be discussed with the council, so we'll have to wait until Pablo updates the thread. But yeah, that's all for forum governance. Getting into forum research, we have, as always, all of the core dev updates. This includes the Guild, GraphOps, Pinax, EdgeNode, Semiotic, Messari, StreamingFast, and Geo. All of those are pretty lengthy, so if you're interested in any of those and any of the team's, latest advancements, you can probably go to the agenda, which is linked here in the chat, and take a look at all of the, interesting topics that have been covered there. Getting into the contracts repository, we have a small PR for the Subgraph Availability Manager contract. This is to improve the SAO, reliability, spreading the load across a few trusted, SAO operators. And that's pretty much it, because we don't have any new updates for the network subgraphs. So I'm going to be handing over to, I don't know if Pac is here, so I'm going to be handing over to 𝗟𝗻𝗀.
Amazing. Thank you both for your sections there. So, as Matthew mentioned, there is a lot of alpha in the core dev updates that are referred to in Protocol Watch, so do go through them. But one way that we're trying to make sure that there's a tighter loop, a feedback loop, and a connection between core developers and the indexers, you guys, is actually bringing those core developers on to speak to in greater detail about some of the updates that they've gone through in terms of the things that they're working on. So today we are very fortunate to have Alex from StreamingFast, who will be joining us and telling us a bit more about some of the stuff they've been working on and sharing additional alpha, and just opening up the conversation so that we can ensure clear lines of communication and circling feedback. So Alex, without further ado, please join the stage.
Hey, you're exaggerating a bit. It's just so we're having fun here. So yes, maybe I could start with just going through a little bit of the updates for those who have not read, but I wanted to make it to add color, because I wanted to tell you what we're working on this quarter. And so we've gone through our exercise of distilling our objectives and key results, and I want to tell you what we're focusing on right now. Remember, we have a small team, 7-8 engineers working on these things, so we need to focus. And one of the focus of this quarter is to shrink the onboarding time. It's taken some time. You have some new users that are arriving. We've observed them sometimes over their shoulder. They're trying to discover substreams and trying to try the product. They go through the documentation, they try to install the tools, and there's a lot of complexities that can be simplified. And so we made the goal of having an onboarding session that we handhold somebody, not really handhold, but look over the shoulder, and it takes them less than 10 minutes to experience the aha moment. And to us, the aha moment is seeing the data stream in the substreams GUI. They see these juicy bits and bytes that have applied to the substreams module, and then they can sort of search through it. They see the streaming aspect of it. For certain substreams, they'll see the parallelization of the processing of the stages and all of that. So, okay, so that's one goal, and I can give you a little bit more color after that. But another goal is to have an increased number. We have specific numbers that we'll discuss internally mostly, but we want to increase the number of substreams powered subgraphs. And we're going to do work there to, again, it's part of the onboarding flow, simplify what it takes to release and program, code a substreams powered subgraph. And also a third thing is the effort we're building to really hone out. I don't know what the expression is in English, but to zero down to the personas, to identify both qualitatively and quantitatively who are the users that benefit most or are users of substreams, right? We've identified a few folks, some graph developers, some folks doing analytics, some wallets, some things like that. And so we want to quantify, so we're going to be running interviews to gather, more data. What's the percentage of folks who care about SQL? What's the percentage of folks who want to learn Rust or whatever? Things like that, so we can take better informed decision to steer the product in the right direction. So maybe I pause here. This is like our goals. And of course, we're doing integration of new chain protocols. That's sort of a continuous thing we're doing. It takes some maintenance work. But I'm going to pause here just in case someone has questions, comments, suggestions, or insults. Aha. Surprised you, huh, Gabriel? Marc-André, the silent guy? Moonbuoy, Mickey. Okay, you want me to continue? Is there a chat there? There's reaction or not? Okay, I'm continuing, but please interrupt me. Send a message in the channel if you have something. What's going ahead? So a lot of things are going to be related to what I've been discussing, but most precisely, we're working... Okay, let me tell you a story. When I was a little younger, I worked at Shopify, and I admire this company for their really engineering grit and innovation and depth. And when they get into something, they really make the most out of it. And so a good engineering company. And I've asked myself, okay, what has changed in technology nowadays that would make it simpler for people to onboard subgraphs, substreams, our technology, right? The substreams tech. And so I went around, and I remember us setting up a Git pod. I don't know if you guys remember, there's a Git pod thing. You define a Docker image, and it would give you a development environment similar to Remix, perhaps people know. And I heard that Shopify had shifted their whole development environment into containers and into cloud-based IDEs. Can you imagine? Like the engine, and I spoke with a guy at Shopify, and he told me, a friend of me who was still there after a few years, and he told me, yes, 95% of the Shopify engineers use what they call over there, is it snaps? No, what is it? Something like that, a snap, I think. And for them, it's containers in the cloud, and they use VS Code that is connected to a cloud instance of their development environment, which runs on containers. So, and all the development let's say, tools and all the stuff is running in the cloud in a predefined and fixed development environment. I remember when I had my Mac over there, it took a few hours to just set up, install MySQL, put the Ruby monolith and all the jazz they had over there. Maybe plug a fake card server for the credit cards and stuff. But now they have that in a container. And the container runs all of the services, and it has all the files and the tools that you can have, even with best practices. And not only that, but they have a VS Code extension that allows them to do crazy things. Scaffold a bunch of fixtures in the database, do the manipulation, all with extreme integration. And so because of that, I was poked by that, and I thought, how would we simplify the developer experience for substreams? Because it's complex, you need Rust, you need Buff, and then you need, a few other compilers and the proto-buff stack and whatnot. So it's a little complex. So I'm working on that right now with the team, to have a fully contained developer environment in a container running the substreams GUI, running the substreams in it, running the Postgres database, the graph node, running whatever services are necessary, the IPFS node if we get down to subgraph development, but also all the Rust tool, all the NPM stuff, all the graph command line tools. all pre-installed, and then you can start that with one click. So I think we'll have a good shot there, and I think people are going to discover something that perhaps has not permeated the blockchain space, where a lot of people are trying to create, programming environments. Well, I mean, maybe we'll bring that technology that exists out externally for a few years now to this space, starting with substreams. So I don't know if you guys have seen GitHub Code Spaces has matured this thing for 3 years. It has really matured, and you get a full-blown VS Code where you can install any extension. So it's really powerful. And you can even install extensions in VS Code to access your MongoDB running in the same container. Or the Postgres database, you have a UI for that, right? And connectors that goes directly integrated with the, .SQL files. And so, okay, maybe I stop here because that was the first point, but the one that excites me the most at this point. This is a pause. Go.
Hey Alex, it's Jim. How you doing?
Yeah, Jim, how are you?
Good. Good to hear about plans to make it easier to set up these hygienic environments. You're definitely preaching to the choir. A lot of people here live in that world, so they do the same thing, but on the infrastructure side, right? So all of their infrastructure is programmed with an IDE and whatever. So the question I'd like to ask you, and treat me like a layman here, because I still haven't, fully dived into the Firehose/Substream experience on the infrastructure side, but who's thinking about let's call them the indexer infrastructure running customer of Substreams and Firehose from the same point of view?
Right. So look, we're a small team, and one of the core tenets of the OKRs is to allow us to focus. Focus on the things that we think are most crucial. And it is definitely true that if we don't have Substream's end users loving the product, there's not a huge point in deploying 5,000, copies and things. So that's why we're focusing for this quarter on the experience of the onboarding, because we've put some work on having documentation for backends and rolling out. I know GraphOps is going to be launching and integrating that into Launchpad. I've been in discussion with Payne and ETCC that I gathered also, to help and perhaps help us a little bit, move that a bit forward, because of course all the code there is open source. A lot of the docs is there. Maybe it's not as pretty as it could be, but it's there enough that we can try to focus and get this technology to be adopted. I'm sometimes concerned that this technology would not be adopted. Imagine how sane it would be that I have like 25 indexers that are pounding me with questions to improve the performance, and there's just no one desiring the product. No one of us would want that, would we?
And incentives drive behavior, right? There's no doubt about that. And I'm certainly not suggesting that it's on you and your 8 engineers to do that. It's a collective effort. It's good to hear that GraphOps are working on that. I'd be interested to see if there's other folks like is Slim on? If our info.
So look, I just want to tell you that we do value and we will support anyone who wants to do some deployments. The code, everything is open source. We can share some of our knowledge. We will do that with GraphOps. We have some docs up there. It's not perfect, but anyone who wants to try, we will help. In our Discord, we'll be the first to answer those questions. And not only that, but Matthew Darwin from PNX, he's also always one of the first to answer questions. So there's not it's not like if it's impossible, right? If you get started, please do the installation. It's just that this quarter, I'm not going to put 4 engineers into making sure this experience is the most flawless. But it's always in the back of our mind how we're going to scale the backends and have the indexers be properly serviced, and we will do that. But it's just not a thing we're going to spearhead this quarter. Please feel supported. Please come and ask any question anytime. We do answer them. We will not answer the questions of people who are coming directly to us.
Thanks, Alex.
Okay. So maybe I just wrap up. These little things I've listed over there. If you're still interested, we made some modifications to substreams.dev so we can explore the packages and dig into the protobuf model, which is really the meat of modules, right? a nice way, just like GraphQL has a nice documentation panel where you can discover the data model. We didn't have that for substreams nor for protobuf really in the ecosystem. So we're building a nice interface so you can discover what the contents of each packages are. So there's a lot of efforts we still need to do on substreams.dev, but it's getting there. We've put a bit of efforts. We've also made something to simplify, creating substreams modules. Is we've transformed the code generation tool into a client server communication. So this means the server can now build the substreams, and some subgraph scaffolding for you. So you need to install nothing. You just hit yes, please build it for me, and it's all run in a build server on the server. Now this might become less useful if we have a full-blown development environment that is ready to run. So this is my goal, to make it, when you want to iterate, it's still fast. But we've done that, and we've added a few more code gen tool, right? There's the 4 different chains. You can imagine we're going to have we're going to roll out some for Solana, but we have Injective, which was a partner of ours that have been rolled out recently, and also we're working on Starknet and Vera. It's not announced, that you don't tell that so far, so something like that. We've also rolled out the base blockchain with extended trace data. That's what from our team, and yeah, we're squashing a few bugs on the graph market here and there. Okay, I know some of you guys wanted to discuss perhaps. We've been working on optimizing storage costs and digging into resource uses for a substreams cluster. The goal for us is to understand what makes sense in terms of pricing, billing. When someone hits us with a request, what costs? Is it a lot of in and out storage? Is it because the heat dissipation on the spinning disk? Is it egress costs that are the most? What's the model of costs, or what's the structure of costs when substreams queries are used? And for different types also, for a lot of historical stuff, for real-time streaming, for sparse substreams or very dense. So we need to gather data to get a better understanding and be able to price these things. Because a part of what makes people use or not use a product like substreams is understanding if they're squeezed into something that's extremely pricey, or it makes sense and they can purchase. They can eventually think to commit to using the technology because the pricing is reasonable. So we need to do that discovery, and we would love to have your collaboration. Anyone who has different setups. We're on GCP, right? GCP has its own pricing models. Maybe AWS, maybe bare metal, maybe I don't know, DigitalOcean, or whatever. You guys are running laptops under your wife's bed. Like I heard a guy doing that sometime. So what's the pricing model? What's the cost model? What is costly? Is it? And I know some don't pay bandwidth. I know some have free disks. So in those situations, what is the patterns? Maybe you have questions around there, or I can answer, but that's my call to you guys. I'll pause here.
Amazing. Folks, feel free to chime in. I see a few people typing as well.
I think there's an opportunity in the development container to even provide an improved subgraph development environment. Because we have in there a graph node running, we can query. We have an integration with the graph market to get a token so you can start streaming. And because it's integrated in the IDE, well, when you change token or change endpoint, we can restart the graph node under the belly because we know where it is. It's a fixed development environment. And the ports are pre-known and they can be exported, and these dev containers can also be shared through public URLs. You can have people route, like just like ngrok or things like that. If you use code spaces, you can have public URLs and you share. See, take a look at this thing. Try what I just developed. It's pretty slick. So maybe there's an opportunity for us. Maybe I'd like to have input from some heavyweights in subgraph development to see what the experience would look like for downstream subgraph development also. Okay. Look, we're rolling out a substrate chain soon. We've created the substreams build command, which simplifies the build steps. And also we've been working on foundational modules that allow us to really take a chain, a new protocol, and feed it directly into subgraphs so that they can start be programmed using the traditional manners. Like think of glorified trigger bases. That would be foundational modules for new protocols. So we'll be putting that out more and more. There's a few that are already out. If you have any feedback, please send them over. I'd appreciate it. Thank you for your time, Abel. I think we're good.
I wonder if Yaro is here on the call, because I'm just reading Matthew's comment here saying that he's been playing around with substream subgraph development recently. So I guess he'd probably be someone interesting to either speak to now or maybe off the call.
Yeah, I don't see him here, but I mean, Alex and Yarrow can sync offline.
Awesome. Yeah.
We will.
But yeah, he and I were just in a call just before this, and he's like, importing data from a substream into a subgraph is going slower than I expect. This was the conversation we just had, and we're coming up with a test case to figure out whether it's a substream issue or a subgraph issue. So we're really trying to understand this problem and what the cost is of getting this working. So, yep.
Okay, let's dig.
Amazing. And just to shed light on Mickey's question here, essentially echoing Alex's question, as we add a world of data services, what kind of info would you want to know about those services as they're being added to the protocol? Compute, storage, whatever. Very interesting to hear from the indexers if anyone has any particular thoughts here, so that we can loop it to the core developers and make sure that it gets worked on.
The big question I want the answer to, Mickey, is how much profit can I get by running this thing?
For profits, we need users, we need great experience. I hope that profits just increase as users increase,
Absolutely.
Exactly. Create value and figure out ways to capture it. That's how we do it. I see Marc-Andre typing. Mickey too, so hopefully we've got some questions coming through. Gotcha. Okay, Marc-Andre seems to be responding to Mickey's question there, which is great. Let's keep the questions coming. It's really great to have Alex on board. Yeah, I'm sure he's got. We're very fortunate to have him. So it'd be great to have any questions.
Come on, stop it.
Oh, that's super interesting. Just to draw attention to what Mickey said in the chat, if y'all have any creative ideas on how we can extend the function of GRT, let us know. Like using GRT as a native gas token on an L3, using GRT as a token inside of a DApp, that kind of thing. I know this isn't an index-specific topic, but you're all smart and ideas are welcome, of course. That's quite interesting. Maybe I'll
the design goal. This is design goal for Geo and the decentralized knowledge graph, and it touches the indexers the moment we have a data service that indexes this data structure, which is a graph really, and there's being work that's is coming on that is going to continue to increase. And yes, it brings GRT to layer 5, I think, layer 7, layer prime 7 prime, I think. But it's the fact that GRT would be used then for writing and being used, to go through a chain and respect the authorization and authentication that it brings. You'd use that because it brings, validation that you're sending data. They call them spaces over there. Validate that you have the capacity to post data in this or that space because you've been voted in as an editor and whatnot. And that would make it a write token, which is very, very interesting indeed. Yaniv, that is who started the graph, leads that now.
He does indeed, and that would be a very interesting use of GRT for sure. Anyone else have any particular thoughts on that? Very interested to hear. This would be really cool to follow back to the 𝗨𝗲𝗂𝗪s.
At the risk of pointing out the obvious, GRT in every single DeFi borrow lend platform you can possibly see is probably the most high impact if you're looking for utility for the coin. Sorry, not sorry.
Indeed, indeed. That would be really cool. What do you think is preventing that from happening?
Maybe it's been tried. I mean, there are things that are being experimented with, right? So there's tenderized liquid staking for GRT. That's a big one. There are a few platforms. There you go. Stake Machine's mentioned one, 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 foment your token as a blue chip in the space, then you're talking about Compound, Aave, those types of places, That's the dream of every project, I think, is to become part of the bigger lake of liquidity out there. I'm not saying I like it, by the way. It's just the way it is.
This is true. This is true. Do you know much about 𝗨𝗨𝗪's finance and how, like, is GRT on there and how it works? I've never actually heard this. That sounds interesting.
I don't know anything about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Stake Machine, if you want to just post a little bit about that, that'd be cool. If not, I can always check it out later after the call. Seems really interesting.
I mean, I'll leave one last thought just to leverage up the signal, right? Imagine the things you could do if you could leverage up your GRT, right? You could do all kinds of interesting things with it within the protocol as well, right? In the future with data services and the like.
Yeah, I think if you really thought about it, there are endless opportunities for financialization. Yeah, the question is building it, I guess. And doing it in a way that doesn't harm the token, of course, because we can definitely over financialize things. But yeah, I agree. I think it'd be really cool to see. Keen to direct some questions to Alex as well. I mean, the aim for this kind of a call is to ensure that, as I said, there's a tighter feedback loop between core developers and the indexers here. So, like, I'm assuming that in interacting with Streaming Fast's products and tooling and all of this stuff, that there may be questions that have come up, or just general questions about kind of how things are going. Yeah, I want to facilitate that. So if anyone has any questions for Alex, would be awesome. In the meantime, if you have any additional alpha that you would like to share, Alex, feel free. Also, stuff that perhaps maybe even isn't in this post. I think that'd be really interesting. If of course you're allowed to, it'd be great to hear that as well. Yes, Alex, I was just saying, as we're waiting for questions to come through, I wonder if you can share some additional alpha, perhaps maybe stuff that isn't in this post, that we should look forward to, or if you have any additional kind of questions for the index community.
What's alpha? You say if we have alpha, isn't alpha like nuggets to get richer? What is that? I'm a tech guy. I don't know about the.
I guess it is used in the context of finance. An edge of information so that you can, profit. But I guess in this case, some sort of unique information that isn't public yet, perhaps would be interesting. If you're open to sharing, of course.
Well, I gave you quite a bit now. I gave you quite a bit here. Are there any other small nuggets there? So we've made some performance metrics. There was a time where we published, the direct Firehose into graph node integration. And that time, we said, wow, people who roll that out, they get a 3x performance increase, drop-in replacement. And as time continued, there was the different experiences here and there. Some people tested different endpoints, different, backends. And I think some got the feeling that this was not always the case or not so true. And so recently we reran some benchmark on a sample of subgraphs to see if the Firehose as a backend, just to replace the JSON RPC endpoint, was good or not good, like what was true. And so we've come up with new stats. One of them shows a 3x performance increase, 320% increase. And so this is still true, but there are some different subgraphs that are either very dense or very sparse, where this is less true. But what we discovered is that Firehose is always faster, and always, there's one time where the price, if we compute, like we compared the pricing per bytes that we're doing publicly right now, I don't know, say 18 cents per gigabyte, and let's say a quick node, with a stupid plan from quick node, when we compared, Firehose was also cheaper even to pay. But even if you're to run the stack, it's going to be necessarily cheaper because there's a margin, to when you're putting out a Firehose service, you want to have a small margin, a little bit of leeway there. So if you're running the thing at cost, Firehose as a backend just for replacing JSON RPC is going to be faster and cheaper, up to 3x, and the price could be even half, more than half. We'd have some numbers. Do I have that nearby? Benchmark. Do I have that? I don't think I have that. No, I don't have it nearby. Well, the 3x is there. Yes, here. Right, so some have 23% faster, 7% faster for one of the cases, and the other one 320% faster. And so the percentage cheaper, we had 8% cheaper, 2.5% pricier in one case, and that's because there was a lot of ETH calls. And the other case, it's 52% cheaper. That's at the price that our public pricing. So you can imagine that, I don't know, be half of that, maybe if you're hosted and you're efficient in your deployment, something like that. Is that useful?
That's super useful, Alex. Thank you for sharing. I mean, I've had a few conversations with people other indexers around, like the day-to-day of living with Firehose as the drop-in. I think the gist I got, though, was that if I wanted to sort of de-risk a bit and continue to run with JSON RPC for the majority of my infrastructure, and then set up a shard and some specific nodes, some graph nodes that are fed via Firehose, then I can do that. Is that correct? I can kind of de-risk from an operational point of view?
Oh, sorry, I'm not sure I got that. De-risk what?
My production operation, where I still want to try Firehose, right? Because there's so much I can do in a test environment, but maybe I want to try it in production, but I don't want to put my entire production set of 500 subgraphs
well, there's a few things. Just to show that things can be quite simple, there's a few things you can do. You can either point a graph node to one of our endpoints, pin access, someone else who's running it. Okay, so that's one thing. If you just want to test, but now you don't control the back end, so maybe you're not sure about the resourcing over there. One thing that happened is that someone ran a test on an under-resourced back end. So the back end had a limitation of CPUs, capped CPUs. It was slower than it could have been. Okay, so if you want to do the testing of the Firehose, or let's say you try an endpoint and we say, look, I'm telling you this backend is, we'll give it all. Maybe you can test the graph node effect on using ours, and we can do that. Or you can download a few blocks. There's a tool in Firecore, the Firehose toolkit, where you're going to download from someone else who has them. So you don't need to run a node and do the whole dance to produce the blocks. You can download the blocks from someone else. It's in Tools, Download from Firehose, I think, and it produces the files locally. And then you can run the Firecore binary that's going to use those local files when it responds to the Firehose requests. And then you run the Firecore as a server, pointing to the local files on your laptop, run a graph node configured to talk to that thing, and you can do local tests if you want to try this. And then you can locally, on your graph node, deploy whatever subgraph you want and then see how it behaves. And then one step further, you can run the Firehose, with the nodes to get the data on your own, and then you can do all that with a single pod, a single process, because the Firecore binary allows you to start all the services, let's say the merger relay or these things, in a single process, all interconnected, as if they were running as a service mesh, whatever. So you run one single program connected on a node, and you'll run the Firehose service. So that's a very simple next step, I would say, to try and see how Firehose behaves for you. Now you're producing the blocks on your own. Yeah, you could decide if you want to process the history on your own or download the blocks from someone else. Okay, you decide on that. And then the next layer, you can decide, I want a production setup. Well, that single program there running with 5 different services, now you can start sharding it, putting it in their own place, interconnecting them to leverage the network throughput of your infrastructure. So these are all steps, baby steps, to get to roll out Firehose for your infrastructure. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Maybe that's something that's not so well known, but it's actually easy to get started.
Yeah, I think I love how you go straight to performance, by the way, because that's exactly what I'd expect from you. But from an indexer's point of view or any operator's point of view, the first thing you want to do if you're playing around with new technology is obviously what you've just gone through, which is you want to play with these things in a safe place where you're not going to interrupt your operational, business. But there's going to come a time, and for some, it's actually the first step, where you want to find ways to do the same thing, but you want to do it in production. So, I mean, maybe the question isn't for you, Alex. Maybe this is a question to other indexers. And I know I've spoken to Vincent over at Data Nexus a bit about this, but, I know a lot of different people are playing around with Firehose and substreams. How are you doing that in production, but also de-risking yourself? Is there a way to split that piece away from your shard, from your traditionally synced shards in production, so that you can still try this new cool thing, but if something goes wrong with it or you make a mistake, you don't blow up your entire operation? I mean, I'd be really interested to hear how people are approaching learning about it in a maybe hybrid production environment, if anyone is.
Matthew, do you want to elaborate on voice maybe?
Sure. I'm just saying we have we actually have more than 2 indexers, but we have 2 indexers. One's running on the testnet and one's running on the mainnet. So if we want to test anything, a brand new chain, for example, which we do a lot because we're doing the testing as part of the chain integration process, we're not hooking that up to the mainnet indexer, right? First, run it on the testnet using a testnet RPC, use a testnet firehose, use a testnet substreams, and then once it's all good, then deploy it on mainnet. So if you want, if you want to reduce the unintended consequences, then set up a separate graph node stack, which you can test some subgraphs. And there's subgraphs published for a lot of all the new chains that are coming. All have subgraphs published for them on the testnet. So that's work that InfraDAO does for testing. So if you could leverage those same subgraphs for testing your own infrastructure. So I personally have not tried setting up a single shard, just having it connected to Firehose. I don't know.
Can you understand why I'm trying to think through something like that though, Matthew?
I totally understand. I just can't answer the question whether that works.
Sure. I just want to be clear. I'm not like YOLOing my production indexer or suggesting anyone else does. It's just the natural reality of being a operator is that you often have to bring these things in slowly, even in production, so.
Absolutely.
Mr. Test in Prod giving me a hard
Test
time.
in prod, always test in prod. We have a test and then production that's the same thing. Absolutely. We do a lot of testing in prod too. But
I'd be lying if I said I didn't. But I really want to make sure I take a mindful approach to introducing this new stuff into my stack.
Yeah, so these are great questions, Jim. I just cannot answer these questions because we started with Firehose before we started with Graph Node. So we're coming at it from the other direction. So
yeah, got it.
We don't have
Thank
that
you.
experience in PinX.
I'm loving the memes in the chat. This is great. Interesting. Marc-Andre, would you like to elaborate on voice about that?
Yeah, maybe just that I've been experimenting a lot. I'm using Firehose on some chains, but for different reasons, I had to go back to RPC at some point, and going back was very safe, and I did it a few times on different chains, and I never encountered any side effect or any corruption. It may not have been always the case. Maybe in the early days, maybe that would break the block cache or something like that. But I think right now, activating Firehose is fairly safe.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing. Loving the chat. This is great. All right, we're coming into the final 5 minutes, so yeah, let's keep the questions going. If anyone has any thoughts to share, that would be great.
I have a
And yes,
non-related question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was just going to say the POAP, but it's in the chat. Go ahead.
No related question to anything that you guys discussed, but how many stuff do you have assigned per graph node on average? Because I'm noticing some subgraphs just stopped doing anything like a week, like 2 days ago, and I'm trying to figure out why.
What was the question? One more time.
How many subgraphs do you have assigned per graph node?
Ah, got it. Cool, awesome. I see a few people typing into chat.
I have 250 as well, 230, 250-ish. But they just fucking stopped syncing. I don't really understand what's happening. Yeah, a restart doesn't do anything though. And I just restarted, and a bunch of subgraphs completely stopped syncing, like new ones. Block ingester works fine. Yeah, 6 minutes ago was the last restart, and a bunch of subgraphs are just completely dead. Besides the one that was were already dead before. Haven't checked Postgres logs, but I turned all the queries off just to make sure that nothing is bombarding the databases. Should that be in the logs of Postgres, Jim?
That's a metric. You should already have it in your Prometheus and this one. Thank you to Derek for sharing those with me at once. You just plot them over time, and it will help you understand what's going on a little bit, maybe.
So it should be a graph, right?
Yeah. Store connection checkout count will be how many connections you have open per, and it will give it to you per node. And then the wait time is the same, but it's how long it's waiting for a connection. If that goes high, then you might be having connection issues. Like your pool may be too small or something else.
Okay.
I think Vincent's done a lot. Yeah, Vincent's typing. Vincent's done a lot of work on this as well, and I've asked him lots of dumb questions about this stuff.
It took a while for the first one to load, but it doesn't look that bad. So the first one is around like 1 to 3.
Your store connection checkout.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how many connections have you defined per graph node in your graph node config?
Good question. I think 50. Let me check.
Right.
Oh no, the pool size is 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of index nodes?
I have 10 index nodes. And like 10 shards.
Okay, so you can spread that out across a lot of shards. I have one monolithic database and I have like a 2,000 connection pool, which is not necessarily the right thing to do. If you look at the graph I posted, like there's a lot of connections, but I only have 4 index nodes and 1 query node at the moment. That's changing at the moment, but that's all I have, and I have a lot of connections open between them. And I'm not saying things are running great; they're not, but they certainly, in general, don't. I don't have whole hosts of subgraphs stopping at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, you might need to modify. I don't know. Maybe if you need to modify that metric. No, it's coming from the query nodes, isn't it? That must be coming from the query nodes.
Can you share the like, 'cause mine looks a bit kind of duplicated all over the place. I don't know why.
Yeah, I might have done a transform on it or something. I don't know. Legend, make your legend instance. That's probably help.
I already have it by entity, which is, I think, the same thing. Is it time series?
It's a time series, yeah, and with the legend as instance in double curly brackets. Format time series.
Yeah, I have it the same. Right, let me check something. But mine takes a shitload of time to load, even for like 1 hour.
Yeah, I'm finding my dashboards. Like that was actually something I wanted to bring up, but we're just so out of time. But I'm moving to sharded stuff, and like all the dashboards need to be completely refactored. I'm noticing. Also, like trying to bring back that query that just, there's loads of queries in the standard dashboards that we built, or Edge and Node built many years ago, that just, as soon as you've got hundreds of subgraphs, they put too much load on your database. Need to make them more efficient.
Yeah, so if I filter by entity, in your case, instance, to me it's the same thing. I just have them named slightly different.
So it just gives you a list of index nodes.
Yeah, but they still return like many duplicates, and it says there's an error saying many time series return. Consider aggregating with some. Are you doing the same?
Instance, minimum step auto, format time, type range. That's pretty much all I've got.
This is how it looks on my end.
Yeah, change your legend to instance.
Yeah, I have it with on entity, but they still double. So I deleted that completely just to make sure.
Right, mine's just the same then, with double curly brackets instance in the legend. That's it. But you've got a lot more, endpoints than I do, so that might be causing issues.
No, I don't think so.
Rate then sum. Oh no, I don't actually know query patterns now. No, there's nothing else here that's different to what you've just put in.
Right,
so
let me show you a screenshot of how it looks.
I would love that, Mickey. I've got so many questions about Postgres, and I really don't. It's not an area of expertise for me, and I think a lot of people will be the same.
Yeah, no,
100%.
totally hear you guys loud and clear. What would be super helpful is if we can start collecting like specific questions you guys have. So we could do a little more of a targeted workshop. Maybe Abel, I don't know if you could help facilitate that.
Yes, would love to.
Okay.
We could talk about it for half an hour, Abel, on one of the, on one of the upcoming calls. Like, just capture as many as possible. Like, I just keep a list myself as I go through things and come across problems on the Postgres side.
Amazing.
Oh, well, by the way, Jim, I found out why I have so many duplicates. It's that it's a many-to-many relation. Every index node connects to all the shards.
Ooh, okay.
So that's like a gajillion results, basically.
So just another example of where, as soon as you go away from monolithic and into, the sharded world, the dashboards, they're a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great, Abel, Mickey. Let's see if we can at least get them collated next week.
Yes, yeah, we can get them collated next week, and then it seems like there's vacation happening that week that I proposed, so maybe the week after, or yeah, we can figure out some date. But for sure, we can collate the questions. Yeah, okay, coordinate the date. Perfect. Yeah, I'll message you on Slack. Okay, cool. Well, seems like we're slightly over. I just want to make sure that we close the loop on that pane. If you have any additional questions or things you want to share with the folks before you wrap.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Okay. Well, we could like officially wrap IOH and then like.
No, it's okay. I'll manage.
Are you sure? Like, because what I was gonna say is we could
Yeah.
officially wrap IOH and then we could keep shooting the shit post IOH. So,
No, it's okay.
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Appreciate you sharing. And maybe as part of the Postgres session next week, if you like start playing around with this and have more questions next week, maybe we could circle back on this if you're open to that.
Sure. I just don't know exactly what's causing this or like what's happening, and my attention is completely off the rails right now into 5 different places. So let's talk next week after I figure things out.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, well, thank you all for attending IOH today. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Alex is gone, but I did mention that we appreciate him in the chat. And as you guys heard, we are locked in with our session next week, so make sure you all attend and share your questions. Okay, take care, everyone, and see you all next week. Bye-bye.